Hello guys, welcome to a video in the React series of React coding interview questions with answers and its explanation. Another common interview question you might be getting in coding interview is interviewer will provide you one API link and ask you to fetch the data from this API and display that one in your web page. In this video, we will learn to fetch the data or make API calls from this API in React.js and show it in our web page. To fetch the data in React.js from API calls, you can use built-in fetch function or popular third-party libraries like Axios or some other libraries. In the interview, it is best to use the built-in fetch function so that we don't need to have any third-party library installations. By using this fetch function, we can directly fetch the data from any given URL. For this video, I am using a JSON file from JSON placeholder website. As you can see here, we have some dummy data here with ID, name, username, and set of data is available here. We can fetch this one and display it in our web application. So let's see how we can fetch this data from this API and fetch it in our web application. For that one, let me open a code editor first. Here I have a dedicated component by name data fetching component in our React application, and I have added this one in our main component app.js. And if you preview this one in browser, you can observe only that title or text which we have added that is being displayed in our application as of now. The first step we need to do is we need to import the necessary packages. The first package which we need here is useEffect. So add that one at the top and add another hook that is useState. Here useEffect helps us to manage the side effects as we are retrieving the data from an URL or API, so we need useEffect in this application. Similarly, we need a useState to manage the state which we are using in this application. Next step is we need to create a state within this functional component by using the useState hook. For that one, add constant data set data is equals to useState. Here useState receives the null initial value and it gives the current value to this data state, and the set data function helps us to set the value of this state whenever it gets updated. And the next step is, as we are going to retrieve the data from an URL, we need to write the useEffect block, and within this useEffect block we are going to write a logic to fetch the API data. As fetching the data from an API contains multi-line, we are going to add that one in a function by name fetchData. So that's why I am calling fetchData within this useEffect hook. And at later point of time, we are going to write the logic within this fetchData function. And you can observe that I have mentioned a empty array as a second parameter to this useEffect. This is nothing but which helps us to run the code within this useEffect only once when the component mounts. So once we are done with useEffect part, then we are going to write the function for the actual fetching data from an API. For that one, let me write a function constant fetch data. It's going to be a synchronous function. And here we use an arrow function. Within this arrow function, we are going to write the actual logic. As we need to fetch the data from an API, there might be some chances where there is an error or failure in the data fetching. For that one, we need to handle that error. For that one, we need to use the try and catch a block. For that one, let me add try block and then catch block. So within this catch block, we need to catch the error which we are going to display it. So now we have try and catch block. Within this try block, we are going to write the logic for fetching the data. First, let me create one constant response. So as this is a asynchronous function, we need to make a wait call. Then we have a inbuilt fetch method by name fetch. We are going to make use of this one, and within this double quotation within this fetch function, we need to mention the actual API URL. As we know, in this example we are going to fetch the data from this URL. Let me copy that one and paste it within these two double quotation, then add semicolon at the end. Once the response is received, we need to convert this one to JSON format. For that one, we can write another constant variable by name JSON data and we can make use of the response which is received, and we have a JSON function to convert this one. And as we are doing asynchronous calls here, let me add await to this JSON data's logic as well. Then the final step within this try block is we need to set the converted value to the data state. For that one, as I mentioned earlier, we have a set data function to set the value of this data state. So for that one, let me use that function set data, and within this one we'll pass JSON data as an argument, so that whatever the data we have converted to JSON format, that will be set to this data state. This is the main logic which we need to have to fetch the data from any URL. And within this catch block, let me print the error in the console window, so that if we get any error, that will be displayed in our console window. So for that one, I will just write one message error fetching data. Then you can add the actual error which we have received in any of the cases. So once this is done, the next step is we need to display the data which we have received in our application. For that one, we need to do the alterations or make the changes in our actual JSX code. To write any logic within this JSX code, we need to make use of open and close curly braces. So let me add open and close curly braces. Within this one, first we'll use the ternary operator. For that one, first I will write data. I am going to check if there is any value in the data, then we'll process or display the data. If it's not, then we are going to display a message to the user by showing the message as still data is loading. So once we are done with the else part, that is nothing but this is a message which we are going to display if there is no data received from this URL. If we received any data from the URL, so within this one we are going to display that data by making use of HTML list. For that one, let me add one unordered list at the starting. And within this unordered list, we need to mention the actual logic to display the data on our application. As we are going to receive a set of data or many number of items from this URL, we need to iterate through all those items. For that one, we can make use of JavaScript's map function. To write that map function, add open and close curly braces, and within this one, let me add the state in which we are going to store the data which we have received from API, and to this one add map function, and within this one we are going to write an arrow function. So now this data.map will iterate through the data which we have received from an API. So within this one, we are going to make use of list item. So for each element, we are going to display the data within this list. So within this list item, we are going to display the actual data which we have received from API. If you go to the API, you can observe there is different data in the format of JSON. So if you observe in the API, there is more data which we have. As I mentioned earlier, we have ID, name, username. So ID is the unique key which we have here. In the iteration function, we need to make use of this ID and display it, so that each list item which we are going to display, that will be uniquely defined. So for that one, we'll take this ID, and within this list items open tag will add a property key, and within this key we are going to add this ID. And within this list item, we are going to add the actual content, and this ID is within this item. So for that one, we need to mention as item.id, so that it will fetch the ID of this item whenever this map function is iterating through each element. Next, we have a name. We will fetch this one in our list. For that one, copy this name, and within this open and curly braces add item.name. That's it. Now save the file and go to browser, and if you go to the application, you can observe all the names which are in the API that is being displayed in our application. So these are some of the simple steps which we need to follow to fetch the data or call an API in React.js application. This is one of the common interview questions in coding or practical round. You may get it. If you need answer or explanation for any interview question, please mention in the video comments. Thanks guys for watching this video. If you like this, please click on like button, share it with others, and subscribe to my channel.